Our bodies are not meant to be exactly the same. However, we think we can eat and do exactly the same things throughout our lifetime, and that does change. So, just being aware of what's going in your body, what's affecting you, what's not making you feel good, because your gut is connected to every single thing, your brain, your immune system, your skin, your
Mhm.
heart, everything.
Welcome to All Things Menopausal. My name is Mary, and I'm a menopause doula. As a doula, we augment the healthcare profession as menopause support practitioners. I created this podcast, All Things Menopausal, to build community for women going through menopause transition and to foster resilience through the stories that connect, educate, and empower. These stories are real, raw, relatable, and they're very much relevant to the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual whole person that we are. In our midlife transition, we are not alone. Each week, you will hear from courageous, vulnerable, and knowledgeable guests sharing their passion, their journey, and lived experience. These are little clues to finding solutions to our unique situation. The menopause symptoms are personal, but the experience is universal. Welcome back, my dear listeners. This week, I am with Kim Hynes, owner of Kim Hynes Health and Wellness, and the host of Emotional Ease podcast. She's going to serve up a hearty dose of wisdom on the intricate relationship between food, emotions, and well-being. Kim is a certified nutritional coach and advocate for holistic health practices, who is on a mission to destroy the diet culture and bring common sense back to the way we judge ourselves with respect to food. Now, if you're like me, you've probably had at some point in your perimenopause journey a love-hate relationship with food or fell prey to the emotional eating. We've all been there. It's life. Don't worry about it. Have no fear. Because in today's episode, we talk about the nuanced world of midlife wellness with a particular focus on helping women navigate the challenges of emotional eating and negative self-perception. Through a blend of nutritional expertise, stress reduction techniques, and the transformative power of self-acceptance, Kim aims to empower clients with practical tools for cultivating a healthier relationship with food and themselves. Drawing upon her background in nutritional coaching and a certification from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, along with her expertise as a gut specialist with a food addiction certification, Kim is committed to fostering a deeper understanding of how our dietary choices impact our emotional and physical well-being. So join me and my guest as we explore the intricacies of emotional eating and the pitfalls of perfectionism, which, by the way, is a trauma response, and midlife alone is a trauma. Forget about all that other stuff we've endured since childhood and the years beyond. So get ready to step into midlife feeling strong mentally and physically, learning how to grow more comfortable and confident with yourself, and tap into an abundance of energy and vitality with Kim.
Good morning, Kim, all the way from a beautiful Florida this time of year, someplace I want to be.
It's such a pleasure and honor to be here.
I'm really thrilled to have you because I feel nutrition, it's one that is met with so much angst and anxiety, nutrition, and we think diet. As soon as we hear that food, oh, diet. So tell us,
Absolutely.
let's get right into it. What is up with our fixation with, first of all, perfectionism and why we hang so much of that on what we eat? We relate it to our food.
Oh, yes. I think that as women, and I know this is my part of my personal story, is as soon as I got into my late teens, I was exposed to diet culture and the perfectionism that women need to be small. They need to constantly be shrinking their bodies, that women need to be and there's so many different categories. I know we're going to focus a lot on the diet culture and the body, but
Mhm.
there are categories that women have felt very in line. They had to be in certain spaces, even not eating as much as a man. Or when you go out on a date, you're not ordering pasta, you're ordering salad. And it's funny because I even remember I was on a date in my 20s, and that was what I did. As I ordered the salad, I really wanted the pasta. but I wanted to look ladylike. I didn't want to look like I was eating as much as someone else or really enjoying my food. And the culture that we have created, and women didn't really create this. I think that when we look back, the marketing and the things that were happening before we came into diet culture were really run by ad agencies, by men, by marketing, by selling. And of course, sex sells, but it's very packaged so that you will look better, you'll feel better, you're going to be attracting other people, you're going to make more money, all this marketing if you look and do this. Look
Mm-hmm.
like this, do this. So I was exposed to that myself. But the other thing is, once it gets into people's minds, women's minds, you are infiltrated with this diet culture because I can remember my mom doing a liquid diet. And I did not know the consequences of it till much later when we talked that her hair fell out. She was actually doing it under a doctor. A
Good
doctor had given her a liquid diet,
Lord.
and I don't remember my mom at that time needing to lose weight, but she thought she did, and that was the point. I remember a roommate, we worked at a restaurant together and we got free baked potatoes. I know that sounds silly, but she would just eat baked potatoes, and that's all she had was a baked potato or two a day to lose weight.
Good
And
Lord.
so I followed that. We follow each other.
Right.
We would see stars drinking Diet Coke, and I remember Tracy Gold sharing her story about that.
Yes.
It was so crazy. And the sad thing is, it has been embedded generationally for so long that we are now just in tune with it. So I'm an intuitive eating coach, and I love helping women find their unique path and feeling safe in their bodies and feeling full and satisfied. But when we start to have the conversation, it is not surprising to me when a woman says, but that has 150 calories in it.
Oh
We're
gosh.
so in tune with it that we know, but that has so much fat. I can't have peanut butter. That has so much fat. So that's where I think we are right now, as we are pretty much peeling back the layers in our industries right now, in our fields, to help women realize that this is an old belief. It's not our story, it's not our belief, and it's not our voice. We now have to find our own voice in our bodies and in our minds and how we feel so that we can move forward and do what we need to do to feel good without having all this shame and guilt. Because all of this, when you're not a perfectionist and you don't make it, or you are a perfectionist and you don't do what you think you're supposed to do, like falling off a diet 10 times, there's shame and guilt involved. And now we can strip that away too if we can let go of the limiting beliefs.
Oh, so amazing what you're doing with women. I Some of the things you said, I have flashbacks. My mom used to read People magazine. She would buy it every week. We had stacks and stacks of People magazines. And I don't know if you recall, but there was a time that if they did an interview with a celebrity, they would put in brackets their weight. So,
Yes.
for example, they would say, call out the actress name, for example, in brackets, 125, 5'6". And I'm here reading these People magazines as like age 8, 9, 10. And I'm sitting there doing
Mm-hmm.
that mental calculation. Okay, so if you're this tall, you must be this frame. Because I'm looking at this picture, this beautiful woman. She looks tiny. So if she's 125 at this height, I must be, okay, I got to get down 120. We're kids. And like you
Yes.
said, this is embedded generationally for so long. It's true. We were just being picked up these unspoken rules, if you will, and we follow them relentlessly, like religion.
Absolutely.
So
That's so
sad.
funny that you said that because I even noticed in the last 5 years that People Magazine is also putting out, what so and so, the celebrity, eats in a day and does for a workout. And so it's the same thing. They've gotten away from the weight stigma, but they're still trying to put rules on everybody to help them be better and be like this celebrity, when you and I both know when we're working with people, every single person has a different situation that we can share with them how this is going to work perfectly into your life, because not all of us have a personal chef. Not all of us have a personal trainer. We don't have a glam squad to
Yeah.
make us look like that. And so it's hard for people to remember that when they're exposed to it. So it's funny you mentioned People Magazine.
Yes, I know. I remember when they stopped doing that too. It actually made a bit of a story as well as that they were going to drop that. But these magazines have an absolute responsibility and a due diligence to protect the well-being of society, men, women, and that stems right back to our mental health. And when we feel this judgment without even being judged, but we feel that this self-induced judgment because we feel we're not fitting that size, that frame. I really love how you framed it. The need to be small, literally by shrinking our bodies. Playing small is bad enough, but shrinking our bodies to the point of, catastrophic health conditions has gone too far. But on the flip side, I feel that these magazines still continue to do it because there's a desire. It's a marketing ploy, and people seem to subconsciously enjoy that. And so they continue to be consumers of this bad marketing and this bad messaging. So I guess it's a two-way street that we have to say, you know what? I don't stand for that. I'm not going to buy into it. So I'm not going to buy your magazines, period. But that's still a long ways away. The responsibility
Yes.
on our part to stand up and say we won't tolerate that. I do hope for one day that to come.
I love that. I love that you said that because it is a consumer driven situation.
Yeah.
And as long as we have people that are wanting to see that, there is going to always be a market. And it also makes me think of social media, how you create your algorithm. If you're wanting to see transformation photos, if you're wanting to see celebrities and what they do and see them. This is really interesting. I just saw online a conversation about Miley Cyrus, on the Grammys and about her winning for her song, and all people could talk about is what her arms and her body looked like.
Uh-huh.
She looked amazing, but this woman just, she created this song. She has a talent and she's so amazing and she's an incredible performer. She's done a lot of other interesting health things in her life, like giving up a lot of things. She's become sober to make her brain better. And yet
Yeah.
all they could talk about was her arms and her body. So you're exactly right, until we stop serving that group, the companies, the group, it's like buying organic food or whatever you're into. When you're buying the things, the demand is what's going to drive this. Consumerism is what's going to drive it. So we have to find our happy place within ourselves. That's where we have to do it until that changes.
Yes. Like you said, this is not our story. Find your voice and then stand in that power, which truly is an opportunity when you hit the midlife and you transition into your, as we talked about earlier, the second spring. We enter into a new opportunity to rebirth who we really want to become and then really get comfortable with that. But it's not
Oh,
always
that's
easy.
powerful.
It
That's
is.
powerful. Someone else just also, I love that our second spring, and somebody else just mentioned a term, feminine evolution.
Oof.
Yes, and we're just really coming into it because think about all the things we just talked about. Even though as a woman, we're supposed to be feminine and we're supposed to be smaller and more petite and be ladylike, we really aren't allowed to be strong in femininity because somebody has defined that for us.
Exactly. And now we have to try to fit into that box of that definition. So tell us then, as a coach, how you bring somebody through the process to shed those layers, if you will, to break it down and to rediscover who they are, the true beauty, the true essence of who they are. And it probably begins with the inside.
Oh, it's the beginning is definitely with the story. And a lot of times, what we will do is, people come in and what is the first thing they want with me is weight loss. And so we just talk about the beliefs where they feel like they've had to lose weight for many years. And so we go back to childhood and we talk about the labels and the things that were said to them and the things that they were told, because those beliefs were given to them by another person, most likely an adult or in middle school or in high school. Somebody said something and they didn't really know what they were doing or saying when they said it. It was just an opinion. But in formative years, we take on things as truth. And especially if it's coming inside our household and our parents, we take on things as truth. And we cannot rewrite that story until we spend some time on it. So I start with the limiting beliefs. I also start with diet culture and saying, why can't you eat that? Why is this not a part of what you're eating? We talk about physical and emotional at the same time because they want to move quickly. So we can pick some physical things, finding out why they're eliminating food, why they're thinking snacking is bad. I don't use the term snacking, but it's funny how we use these words bad and good in
Mm-hmm.
our talking about food. And so I ask them to share with me, what would you consider good and what would you consider bad? Because when we can eliminate bad and good with our food, and we're not putting morality and values on our food, then we can also eliminate the morality and this good and bad with ourselves. Because when we eat and we feel shame and guilt, we're calling it, well, I was bad today. And so those are the things that I unpack first because I agree that for most people, food is not just food. For me, it's not. I have a very, very rough emotional eating binge restrict background. Food is not just food. I think about it all the time. I love food, but I hate food sometimes because it does make me feel that way and I have to rewire my brain myself. So that's what we
Yes.
unpack first is what are we really believing about food and how can we turn this into, instead of a love-hate relationship, a love affair with food?
Oh, yes. Now, in your coaching program and with your training and background, which is incredibly diverse, well done. Well done for recognizing what your mess was and turning it into your message, right? There are
Thank
pain
you.
points. We
Thank
know
you.
that transformation people want because we've lived that. We've gone through the pain points and we've discovered something that works based on credible information, training, certifications, background. So I applaud you for that. But tell us, with the intuitive eating, do you break down the science of what's going on with the brain when it wants to react to emotional situations and draws us to food?
Yes, we talk about the brain, we talk about muscle, we talk about all the reactions.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I think it's really incredible, people may know this logically, but until they tune into themselves after we've talked about it, they don't really understand that, we live off this high, this dopamine. We live off of that in every parts of our life. In our brain, we get lit up, whether we're scrolling, whether we see something that we really like, whether we are doing something fun for ourselves. And some of the food that we eat, and it doesn't even have to be just processed food and sugar, but that's a lot of times where we find it. We get that light up. And the reason why we need it though is because there's other parts of our day, other parts of our life that are not getting that and they're not
Mm-hmm.
getting enough self-care. So we talk about how the brain is so brilliant. And the brain is brilliant also because it connects with other parts of our body. So that might be the emotional side. I'm stressed out. I'm tired. I had conflict with someone and I'm really uncomfortable about it. I was over people pleasing and I'm resentful. All of these emotional things can be happening. The other side of it is physically, we also, if we're like the real tired feeling, glucose. Thinking
Yes.
of if you're thinking of the foods that you reach for when you're super tired physically because you're not sleeping, and menopause is the time when we really start to struggle with that. We need that energy source. And what are women doing? They're cutting out all their carbs. So when we need glucose for the brain and we need a really good healthy carb source to also bring up serotonin, which is our feel good hormone, it also is to relax us. we are struggling because diet world says, well, I can't have a potato. But
Yes.
then our body's saying, I really need to calm down and I need something nourishing. So there's a lot of conflict. So we do talk about what the brain's doing, just so that when people are making changes, there's a logic to it. Because we've gone through diet world where I'm just going to tell you what to eat. Here's your meal plan, which, by the way, I'm a habits health coach, intuitive eating coach. I'm not a registered dietitian, so I don't prescribe food to people. I just share all the ins and outs and the pros
Right.
and cons.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just say, hey, why don't you listen to your body? And that doesn't mean, listen to the body we do want sugar sometimes. It's fun. Life is happening. There's nothing wrong with that. We think that's what we want, but we're not listening. We're not
Yes.
listening. Did you need a nap today? Did you need a hug? Did you need to cut one appointment out of your schedule? Did you need to say no to going out at night? Did you need to sit down and read a book? Did you need to shut your eyes and meditate? Did you need to pray? Did you need to
Yeah.
whatever, fill in the blank? Because the
Yes.
body wants something, but we don't always know what it is. So food is it's most reliable. It's right there. And at the time, it doesn't judge us. We judge ourselves. So food is going to be like going in and just hanging out with a friend.
Right. Yes. And those pathways that the brain has developed over time, it's a well-used pathway. So it's going to keep going back to that well-used,
Yes.
well-recognized, familiar pathway. And in many senses, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not just rewiring the brain, but you're showing it a new route around, putting an obstacle in the way of that pathway that it wants to take, the lazy route, and showing it a different option.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
I've
lazy
noticed.
route. I love that. And lazy's not bad. We're not saying it's a
Yeah.
bad thing, but your brain wants the path of least resistance.
Yeah. It's designed to be, let's be efficient. Okay. We've established a pathway. Done. We're going to keep using that. And it's designed to protect the body, to be optimize it and to be very efficient. But it's a tricky thing because, again, it's those old belief systems that have laid the foundation for building that pathway. I have certainly
Yes.
recognized it in life too. And I think that's why people like you and I can become the coaches and the doulas, because we've had some lived experience and we said, no, there's a better way. I've cracked that nut. Now I'm going to share
Yes.
that message.
And there's pain there. There's pain when we
Yeah.
know that we're not doing the optimum things for our health or for our bodies, and there's pain. And we don't want people, you and I don't want other people to constantly feel the pain because, like you said, in the second spring, in this last half or third of our lives, we want to truly live. Quality of life is even more important, I think, than years of life at this point.
Absolutely, for sure. Absolutely. Live a full, wholesome life that you have just given it your all, showed up as your best, and enjoyed the ride along the way rather than grudgingly gone along with all the standards, with all of the mess or standards and the message of around us that tells us this is the way we should live our life. And I speak about that more so from the perspective of when women work with their GP, and their GP gives them these messages and these signals that this is what's best for you, so you must follow. And many women blindly go along believing, putting absolute faith into those who can prescribe, the doctors, the dietitians. I actually, dietitians are probably far more experienced to speak on this, but certainly with our GPs, and we spoke about this and before we started rolling, is that they have this perspective, this idea of how a woman should live their life. And the woman's like, but I know this body for over 50 years now. I think I can make those choices for myself. Thank you very much. But that little coaching along the way. But I really am happy that you did bring up it can be painful. And this goes back to the point about where the meditation goes hand in hand and that mindfulness goes hand in hand with the nutrition. There's a lot of work that has to be done on being able take that mindset where you become the observer, where you can actually step outside yourself. And that takes practice, but just to be the observer and observe what's going on here. Why am I reaching for that peanut butter and banana sandwich at 10 o'clock at night after I've had a beautiful, healthy dinner? What am I hanging on to? That takes a lot of work, a lot of practice. Do you work with your clients in that area of the mindset, and tell us how you do that?
Absolutely. So there are two sides to this. One is actually giving ourselves permission with the food. And the other side of it is actually having techniques and tools. And so the first side of this is, if I'm at 9 o'clock at night feeling like I need something, and I can explore it, I still have permission to eat because that food will be there now. It'll be there in 5 minutes. It will be there in the morning. When I give myself permission, then it takes away the novelty, it takes away the urgency of it. Well, I have permission, but let me think about this for a second, because if I think about it and I still want it, I can have it. And maybe there really is a need. Maybe there's a blood sugar need. Some people do sleep a little bit better when they eat in the evening. We have a lot of these rules that we've not been going, we haven't been eating at night because we're so afraid of, the things that you're going to gain weight if you eat at 9 o'clock at night. By the way, that's a myth, because our calorie intake and our calories that we use are over a period of time. It's not one specific time. But the second part of that is calories in, calories out don't really work to just follow that way, because we're hormonally all processing different food differently, and our metabolisms are different. So that's part of it, is just having permission. Whatever you want to eat, you have permission, because if you say, I can't eat that, many of us, even though we might be very sweet people and we might be passive, we do have a rebellious 5-year-old inside of us that says, you can't do that. So guess what? You say, Kim, you can't have chocolate. I will obsess about that chocolate all day long when I'm told I can't have it. And I will obsess about it until I have it. And so then if I say I can have a piece of chocolate at night while I'm sitting around watching TV with my husband, with my cup of tea, then guess what? I can really enjoy that because I have permission. And you talk about the power. I love when you talk about the power, because you have the power over your body. And when you say no, you're really responding to somebody else. You're not really talking to yourself about your rules. And then the second side of it is, maybe I do need some techniques and tools to slow down when I give myself that 5 minutes. There are a couple things that I can do with people. And one of them is I do actually have them put a Post-it note somewhere where they're going to go for the food with just a number 5 on it. And that's all it is. It's just like, oh, I can do this in 5 minutes. Let me think for a second. You can breathe, you can walk. My favorite is tapping. I'm a tapping coach, and I have been working with tapping coaches to do that because I love the acupressure points that people use. Listeners can't see me doing this, but I'm tapping on the acupressure points because some people need that physical touch. They need that energy to be unblocked, and they need to be able to talk themselves through it. So as I'm tapping, I may be saying, I want the chocolate. I want the chocolate. I want the chocolate. But as I go through the tapping, I start to realize that, oh, I had a long day. Oh, I'm really just want to sit down with a cup of tea. Oh, I just want something in my hand. I'm unsatisfied with something. And by the time I get done with literally just 2 minutes, 120 seconds of tapping, I realized that there's more going on with me, and that releases it. Meditation's great, but sometimes we have to be in a space for meditation. And when you're ready to eat something and it's right there in front of you, it's really hard for me to sit down and be like, clear your thoughts. And we aren't really, meditation isn't really clearing, it's kind of letting them go. But the other thing that I find really valuable is physical movement. So some of my clients do really well by just walking. When we walk, we, one, stabilize our blood sugar, which could be an issue and why you want to eat. When we walk, we process our day. Our eye movement helps us process our day. When we walk, we are moving that blood around our bodies so that we're feeling a little more energized. We increase the endorphins, we feel better. The processing is so important. So there's so many different methods, but just like you, when you work with people, these women are all different. So some
Mm-hmm.
people are not going to get up and walk. Some people need the quiet come down.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, and I know this is hard because this isn't really I don't love this part of intuitive eating, but it's true. Proximity is everything. So if everything is laid out right there that you can get your hands on and you don't have a moment to give yourself that love and that safe space in your body and that time, what I've even done in my own cabinet is I still have a 19-year-old. I have 4 kids and 3 of them have moved out. My 19-year-old is still there. And you can imagine what a 19-year-old eats. And it's like Oreo thins are in there right now, corn
Yeah.
chips, kettle chips. We've got ice cream in the fridge. So what I do is I literally move that to the back of our cabinet. He'll keep moving it up every day. That's fine. When I'm in a very safe space, I move the stuff that I know will nourish my body in front of it, whether it's my almonds or
Nice.
whatever it is, just to give me a minute to take a break and say, okay, you know what? Do I really want that in my body right now? Because it's not about, you can eat it, you can have it. But then the next step is with the clients, is to teach them, is that going to nourish your body and make your hormones hum?
Mm-hmm.
Is that really what you want?
Yes. Yes. So good. There's so many great gems there, Kim. Love it. I like that though. Hop out of it, take 5 minutes. I say when I teach yoga classes and we get to the hard part of the long poses, I say, if you need to fall out, fall out. Take a hot second, shake it off, then get back in. It's just the mind telling you can't do this. You got to
Oh,
override it.
so good.
And that is just less what you learn. I keep saying what we're doing on the yoga mat is just a practice for life. And
Yes,
yeah,
because we're going to
it is
drop out once in a while.
gonna
It's
drop
about
out.
shaking it out and getting back in. That's so good.
Have fun falling out and then get right back in. Don't beat yourself up. So true. So you ate that whole sleeve of Oreo thins. Don't beat yourself up. Drop
It's
down
going to
and do some
happen.
push-ups.
Yeah, it's going to
It's gonna
happen.
happen. Yeah.
And part of getting better is curiosity, not criticism. Taking care of
Ah.
yourself with curiousness instead of criticizing yourself, because criticizing is going to lead to you shutting down and your brain's going to deny it, and your brain is going to want to say that hurt, that was awful, so I'm not going to think about it. But if you say,
Mm,
"Oh, wait a minute. I just ate 10 of those. Why is that?" And something I teach
mm,
my clients is, if you're going to do that, see how much you can slow down and say, okay, the first bite is so good. That first cookie is so good. It's Girl Scout season here for cookies. Like, they're selling them
of
everywhere.
course.
People, yeah, it's all over the place. So I think about these Thin Mints that I used to be obsessed
Oh,
with.
yes.
And because of my eating behavior, I wasn't a 1 or 2 or 3 cookie girl. I was like a sleeve girl. I could go through them and I just keep going back. I hid them in my backpack in college so that nobody would even know I had them. And I just kept going in. And if you are on that second cookie and you can possibly slow down, savor. It's a taste explosion. The first bites are so powerful. The second bites are really good. By the time we get to the third bite or even the third cookie, that is when the mindless part is coming in. You're
Hmm.
living off that first bite. You're living off that memory. You're living off that dopamine hit from the first couple cookies. And if you can understand that, even after the fact, then it kind of slows you down, and then give yourself permission. Say, you know what? These cookies are going to be here. If I really want this in 20 minutes, I can still come back and have some. The permission to eat plus the power of that first few bites can really help people say, oh, you know what? I'm good. And then they forget about it 20 minutes later, or they say, you know what? That was good. I got to satisfy that urge.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you use analogies when you help coach through this process? Have them visualize a scenario that doesn't involve food, but visualize a scenario where they're going to attempt to do something. It's like you approached it. Oh, okay, that was fun, but let's step aside now. Got the enjoyment
It's
out of it.
it's not necessarily analogies, but it's just actually explaining
Okay.
that you are imagining that you have made the choices that you want to make, and how does that make you feel? And what
Right.
identity does that give you? Because
Ah,
everyone wants that identity of being a healthy person. But if you're aware and you are thinking about it and you are working on it, you have that identity already. And that
beautiful.
identity is yours. Nobody has to take that away from you. Nobody gets to tell you what your identity is. That's yours. And if you have that healthy identity just from saying, I want to change this, that's yours to take.
I love that. And getting curious. So good. Don't criticize, but be curious. So, this is probably where things like a food journal would come in handy. Do you do food journaling with your
I
clients?
do, but I have to be honest, it doesn't work for everyone because
Right.
food journaling, because of diet culture, becomes very obsessive for some people. And they start to alter their behavior based on what they think they should see on that food journal. And sometimes they don't understand that they're not even eating enough. This is something so interesting I've been finding with my clients, that even if they have weight that they want to lose, even if they have blood work that's not great, they're not eating enough food. And so they, alter their behavior based on what they think I'm going to look at on the food journal. And
Okay.
when we and it's so it's food journals work great for some people because they don't even realize. They have no idea that they're walking by the cabinet 10 times to grab a little Hershey's bar. They don't realize that they're, grabbing a snack, all the time and not letting their blood sugar come down at all. And so we can track that. Some people are very okay with that. It's great. It's the people who've grown up with this diet mentality that start to think that they need to make changes. And
Right.
this is part of it. And this is so amazing to me. They want my approval. They want my approval on that food journal.
Oh my
And I'm
gosh.
like, this is your food. This is your
Right.
body. They know that I have a safe and non-judgmental space. And I've been through it myself, but we are still trying to be good and perfect and pretty and small for somebody else, not ourselves. And so we talk about that. It's a great conversation. But what I also share with them is, if they can do a food journal, we map out a timeline. So some
Okay.
people don't realize that every few hours when they're having that dip and they're not feeling well, they don't realize why they're feeling that. And when we stretch out when they can eat and how many times a day they can eat, and they see the actual time, they realize, oh, it's okay. It's okay for me to eat because I'm getting a dip in my blood sugar. Oh, it's okay that I'm not hungry now because I'm still full and my blood sugar might be running a little high. It's okay to not eat right now. So we do look at food journals for some people because it's such a beautiful roadmap for them. But
Okay.
I don't do an approval or a non-approval. I don't say, yeah, you did great. I say,
Yeah.
okay, here's some information. This is just communication with your body.
Yeah, that's so good because so many emphasis is on the food journal too. Track what you're eating, track how you feel. I think tracking how you felt after it, even just a couple hours is wise. But I now understand, I can see the obsessiveness of people taking that to the extreme where it is detrimental. It's counterintuitive to gaining control. And it in fact
W-
puts them right
Good
back.
word, counterintuitive.
Yeah.
And you know what's really interesting? You would not believe how many people come in and they want to share their MyFitnessPal or their Chronometer or whatever their app is that they're using. And I don't know if people realize this, but the food industry is allowed to be up to 20% off on calories and fat and things like that. So if that's the case, then we're not getting an accurate measure anyway. So
Oh, and
it's
see,
sad.
it,
And
yeah.
it also, when you're tracking anything, even macros, we're fitting things in because, oh, I have room in my carbohydrate macro, so I can just eat this, whatever. And we're not really thinking about putting together a balanced plate. Oh, and that's a whole nother thing we can talk about. when I talk to people about food, we look at a balanced plate. We don't look at calories, macros, and things like that. One of the things I've noticed with my clients is blood sugar, insulin resistance is so great in our menopause. You know, with working with people, that insulin resistance is such an interesting issue as we have hormonal changes when that estrogen and progesterone's dropping. And when women are eating to feel full, stabilize their blood sugar, not be having crazy highs and lows. And they understand that, because you were talking about having that knowledge. When they understand the knowledge and how that's connected to everything in their bodies, their gut, their muscle, their brain, their mood swings. So a balanced plate. And what a lot of women, this is not perfect for everyone. So when I say this, please understand, if you're listening, you are on your own path. But a lot of my women find, when they have a decent amount of protein, the fiber, because we're also dealing with constipation, a lot of fiber, getting those antioxidants, getting things in our bodies that are helping with our aging and our cells. And then and this is a personal choice, having a little bit of that carb, especially if you're working out, they're finding that to be a really good mix. And some women, they play around with it. Sometimes they have maybe more carbs at night so they can sleep. Some people have it right before their workout. Some people, here's the other thing, and I'd love to know even your thoughts on it. We have this huge trend of intermittent fasting, and I think it's borderline diet culture. I
Okay.
think
Yep.
that people have lost track of what fasting was originally for.
Oh, yes. I could talk extensively. And I actually put out an Instagram post about that. It was originally designed, again, for men, to look at men who had cardiovascular issues, and it just got carried away. And I shared that on Instagram. And I was going to ask you about the intermittent fasting. I have my own opinions. I do a form of time restricted eating, but it's because I, over the years, have observed that if I do that in the morning, allow the body, because your cortisol levels are higher in the morning anyway. I don't want to spike it with anything else. And I allow myself to go about my day. I feel more energized. I feel, when I say lighter, I don't want the listeners to think light as in terms of body size, but I feel lighter in spirit and in mind, and that allows me to process. I personally have found that the 14-10 has worked for me, but then I close my eating window. And for those who don't know what TRE is, time restricted eating, it's when you limit the eating window. Doesn't mean you limit calories, you just limit the eating window. And so I close my window about 6 or 7 at night, and then I don't eat until about 10, maybe 11 the next day. I feel fine. That is a form of intermittent fasting, and it's explained in a lot of great books that are out there, like The Galveston Diet by Dr. Marie Claire Haver. I believe, though, that the intermittent fasting was overmarketed, fell right into that diet culture phenomenon. And people believe that intermittent fasting should mean an entire day, or maybe even a couple of days, which is very unhealthy. And in fact, there's more empirical information that's coming out there saying, even if you're in menopause, but you're still, or perimenopause, you still might be cycling, you've got to eat with your cycle. So the luteal phase, where the progesterone is a little bit higher, you should be taking in a different, like you said, the balance plate. You might have to alter the carbs versus the proteins just a little bit, tweak it. But then when you're in the follicle phase, where the progesterone is a different level, you have to eat to that too. It sounds really complicated, but I have come to realize that charting and following your cycle in perimenopause, even if you don't have a cycle for 3 or 4 months, but you still over time see a pattern. And then it's really wise to match it too, because you could really bonk, you could really drop and really bonk at certain phases. And that is when you get the hangry. That is when you really fall off the wheel and get a little bit extreme in your intake. And then it's an endless cycle. You beat yourself up for it. Well, there was a reason. And I tell this to my daughter: make sure you eat to your cycle. Make sure you eat for your menstrual cycle, and it's going to change. your first few 5 days is going to be different from day 27, 28 sort of thing. And so when it comes back to your question about how I feel about intermittent fasting, it's a trap. You can do it wisely, but it's a trap. Do your research and then make those powerful, informed choices.
So good. I agree. I really agree. I think that it's making the informed choices. And I also think it works for some people. And I would think that others just have to listen until they get themselves in a place where their body feels safe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, the eating for the cycle. I love that. I wish I knew that before I went through menopause. And as a postmenopausal woman, now that I'm more balanced out. And I think balance is a very tricky word because I don't think anybody's ever fully balanced, but we throw that word around a lot. But I am much more balanced. And when I say that, what I mean by it is I have energy. I feel good. I'm sleeping
Mm-hmm.
well. I can work out as much as I feel comfortable working out. I have a clear brain. My gut feels good. That's what I mean by feeling balanced. There's a very specific list that I know when my body's off, I know. And with intermittent fasting, I find that there's so many different ways to do it that women can find a really good way to do it. You found the perfect way for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I am one of those people that I like to get up in the morning. Like you said, cortisol is higher. I like to grab a cup of coffee with my husband, although even that's changed for me. I have to really bring down my caffeine level. But then I like to work out right away. And there are a lot of schools of thought that say, no, you've got to have a snack before you work out. But here's the thing, my body, I get nauseous when I work out when I
Sure.
have that. If I'm going to do something long, if I'm going to go take a hike with my kids, or I'm going to go for a long walk, or I'm going to be away, yes, I would probably have something. So some mornings I don't want to eat. And I'm not living off coffee, by the way. We see the Instagram world of people living off coffee until noon. And it's, if you like coffee, that's great. And your body can metabolize the caffeine, but don't do it as a meal. Do it because you really enjoy it. There are great benefits to coffee,
Mm-hmm.
but there's those drawbacks to it also.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you are finding that you are really hungry in the morning, I have women who have thyroid issues. I have women who are still not quite balanced out and they're listening to their hunger cues. And it feels so good to have a really nice, solid, balanced breakfast with that balanced plate idea, or to have some Greek yogurt and some fruit, or to have some eggs and spinach, or to have whatever feels good, and it sets up their day and they feel really stable all day long. So I think it's a really personal choice. And I think people have to really look at it. And like you said, the research was done on men. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't done on women, but there are benefits to fasting and the clarity. And I can't deny the brain clarity. You and I both know there's nothing like it because once we start to eat, we definitely have blood flow going to different areas of our body. But I will be honest with everyone, I have accidentally overdone it because I'm not that girl that can just do something and, try it out. I'm an all or nothing person, as you already know with my food. So I have done too much. I
Mm-hmm.
fasted till noon. I fasted till 2. I tried to do 24, which I've never made it through, and realized, wait a minute, when I really looked at the research, there was no reason for me to do that. There was no reason
Yeah.
for me to overdo it. But diet culture, less is not more. More is
Yeah.
more.
Exactly. Beautiful,
Mhm.
beautiful way to frame that. And we actually could talk great length.
Forever.
And I think more than once is going to be in order to bring you back because I do want to talk about, when we talk about it's different for everyone. And it's also even more complicated or more nuanced, if you will, with athletes, people who are, and you talked
Yes.
about getting up in the morning and having a workout, but then there are those real driven athletic women who are in performance athletes, for example, or competitions, for example, and they
Hmm.
hit the midlife and it's just all hell breaks loose.
Yep.
So they thought that they had a grip on their percentage of proteins to their carbs and just timing it just before the workout, the heavy workout. And some women
I
are
was a
doing
marathon runner. I did 23 marathons and I hit perimenopause And it blew my world apart in that area. You are spot on. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. So I think that is worthy of a conversation in itself. Otherwise, we will be here to noon or 1 o'clock and probably getting really hungry. Need to grab a snack. Yeah, but it's so good. If there's anything that I really want our listeners to take in is that intuitiveness, that observation as well. You are your individualized. You're not the magazine, you're not the Instagram post, you're not your friend, your neighbor. You are you, and you've got to stop listening to the voices outside of you and start listening to what your body is telling you. And again, this is a menopause. It's a beautiful opportunity. It's an invitation to rediscover who you are and to get wise. I say this all the time on my podcast. Get wise means getting wise about who you are from a physical, mental, and a spiritual and emotional standpoint. But yes, the intermittent fasting, the jury is definitely out on that. If you're doing it to control any gastrointestinal issues or to tackle belly fat, work with a coach. Be very wise. Just don't do it blindly because it can be quite dangerous. Giving the pancreas a break is always a good thing, but there's a strategy to it, right? We could talk at great length too about why insulin sensitivity is off as we get older, and the gut health. You are a gut health specialist and have some certifications in that field too. I actually did a certification only for my personal knowledge so I can have a more rounded perspective when I approach my clients as a doula. But love to bring you back to talk about that. If there is something that you could leave us with right now about the gut health, what is the one key important piece of information that
Oh,
you
it's
could
so
share?
simple. And it's funny because I did that for myself too. I did not do that thinking I would use it in coaching. But what I found was our system is amazing and it knows how to keep moving. So if you're feeling things like constipation or you're feeling, and when we go through menopause, there are some things that are going to happen constipation, maybe the opposite, maybe diarrhea, maybe you're just bloating after every single meal. Things
Mhm.
are changing and it's okay. Your body's changing. It's okay. Your food sensitivities are changing. It's okay. Everything that changes, we want to be our 20-year-old self. We want to be our 30-year-old self, but we go through puberty. Some of us have children. Our bodies are not meant to be exactly the same. However, we think we can eat and do exactly the same things throughout our lifetime, and that does change. So just being aware of what's going in your body, what's affecting you, what's not making you feel good, because your gut is connected to every single thing, your brain, your immune system, your skin, your
Mhm.
heart, everything. So just start paying attention to that and get a coach. Ask someone who is going to help you figure out what it is if you can't eliminate it yourself. But also, we both know that parabens, sulfates, makeup, lotions, there's so many things. This is a whole nother episode that we can even do on my podcast too, is all the things that affect you that could be, and not to make it scary, not to make you feel like you're going to have to eliminate everything in your world, but to be aware because there might be some very specific things that are affecting you that could easily be removed, substituted to make you feel better. Because the gut
True.
is, there's so many places in our body that we feel are central to us. We talk so much about our heart and our brain. All of it's true, but our gut really is this like center that talks to everything in your body.
That's so
So
true.
just be aware.
Yes, true. Those trillion microbes that are doing all the functions of the body, those little bugs in our body are carrying out all the
Yeah.
functions. It's incredible when you dive into the gut health. And
And
if
we forget
anybody's,
that normal is not normal. Our normal is not really normal. We live with stuff all the time. When people tell me, I feel sick every time I eat ice cream, I'm thinking, why are we eating that still? Why can't we find something that you love that's just not going to make you feel sick every time?
so true. Yeah. Observe intuitive eating. Kim, this has been an incredibly information packed episode, and I could sit here for hours and pull out more and more of your wisdom. But let's not do that right now. We will bring you back. But in the meantime, share with the listeners where they can find you and how they can get involved with you in your coaching program.
Thank you. And thank you so much for such a wonderful, fun conversation. It's easiest to find me on Instagram at Kim Hynes Health. I also have a podcast called the Emotional Eats Podcast. And actually, all of my handles are at Kim Hynes Health, but I just love Instagram because there's so much information out there and I just want to share. And I love the colors and I love the life of it. And I think you and I might have even found each other that way. But also
Exactly.
come listen to the podcast. Let me know what you think. DM me and send me some thoughts. And again, Mary, thank you so much. It's a beautiful conversation. I love that you're helping women this way.
And ditto, ditto. I'm so pleased to see that we are seeing coaches arrive in the space now, allowing the woman to really step into her power and coaching her along the way, whatever it might be with her food. So thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.
Here are my key takeaways from today's episode. Number one, health and wellness is an individual journey. Our bodies are meant to change over time, especially during menopause. It's essential to listen to our bodies and understand that our dietary needs may alter as we age. Number two, societal pressures to be smaller, eat less, or following certain dieting standards can be emotionally and physically harmful. We should challenge these notions and avoid falling into that diet culture trap. Number three, emotional state often influences eating habits. Recognizing the interplay between emotions and food consumption can help in establishing a healthier relationship with food. Number four, intuitive eating. Listen to your body's hunger and satisfaction cues and grant yourself permission to eat without feeling guilty or shame. This method helps you find a balance with your eating habits instead of falling into a restrictive diet mindset. And number five, if you feel that you're falling into an emotional eating trap, apply some mindfulness strategies like tapping, meditation, go for a walk. Create a moment of stillness and just pause before giving in to those cravings. You'll be amazed of how much more control you can take in the situation. And lastly, gut health. The gut has a strong connection with our overall well-being. We should all be aware of how different foods affect the gut health. Check in with that. Keeping a little track of what foods cause what reactions is so essential as we change through our midlife. Do you need support through your menopause transition? A menopause doula can help. You can find me at mlcoaching.com. And help me help you by filling out a simple survey, which is linked in the show notes. Your input is greatly valued and will help in the design and creation of tools, courses, and other resources for my upcoming one-on-one and group coaching programs. Take the survey, it's linked in the show notes. Like, follow, share, subscribe. And if you are enjoying this podcast, I would love to hear from you. Consider leaving a review. Spreading the word will help broaden my audience reach and further impact more women as they experience a transition.